This is the ICS Security Radio Hour half hour with me, Eric.
Me doing.
Dwayne, this is like our first go at this, even though we've recorded a bunch of episodes in the past. But nobody knows that right now. So this is the first episode.
This
So,
is the
Dwayne,
first episode.
why are we doing this? Why do we have another? Why is there another podcast being birthed into the world?
Huh, huh. Well, I mean, let's be selfish first, or let's talk about some of the selfish things, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the better, the better aspects of this. I mean, from a selfish standpoint, I think we both found out that we just enjoy doing this, right? We enjoy talking about ICS security. We enjoy challenging each other, and look, let's be again very transparent. Say, we're kind of trying to build a brand here. Now, what does that mean for you, the viewer out there? A couple things. One is, we watch a lot of or listen to a lot of podcasts, and kind of had a lot of discussions around. Gee, there's some things missing. And, on the sort of selfless side, let's give back, right? And the easiest way to give back is do something you enjoy. And watching some other podcasts, some good, some not so much, I think we came to the conclusion, and please chime in here, it's like, well, there's a lot of areas that aren't being covered. There's a lot of technical stuff. There's a lot of, hey, CIA, AIC, blah, blah, blah,
I,
convergent,
here's the way I think about it, right? The ICS security world is very technical, right? And not everybody is like expert level of ICS security. A lot of people are. There's a lot better people than me that know this stuff, but nobody talks about it in just kind of a normal way, right? As well as kind of a way that like reverts people's careers. It's always about threats. It's all about specific things. It's not about kind of the good old, the day to day, as well as like how do you make yourself better and how do you make your organizations better. It's often about very technical, specific things. And I think you and I both like bringing things down to a little bit simpler level, even if it's highly technical, as well as kind of making something more inclusive. And I think that that's been a little bit missing maybe from the content that's out in the ether right now.
Yeah, I think there are people that work hard to try to help educate on OT security or whatever words you want to say, but they're kind of few and far between. And I think hopefully the content we've made and will release and provide over the next however long, yeah, it is very ICS oriented, but I think it's also good in a general. Many of the episodes you're going to see are good in a general way about, how do you build your own brand? How do you show value? How do you make sure that you're visible and not getting laid off, right? I mean, look, we both
Yeah,
got laid off.
that's the big thing for me too. Is I think that we're focusing a little more on career, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing: ICS security, as well as generally focusing on ICS, has not been a long term thing, right? There's been a finance department for a very long time. There's been an engineering department in organizations for a very long time. OT, ICS, certainly ICS security is a pretty brand new thing.
Yeah.
It's not it might be a subset of one of these more established groups, but figuring out a path, figuring out how to better yourself in these kind of positions and these kind of roles is not a well-worn path. And I think that both of us bring through our various experiences as well as our various seeing different organizations and what they're doing. I think we can provide a little bit of guidance and a little bit of opinion on how to better yourself. And as you said, not get yourself laid off.
So, I mean, maybe we could talk just a really super brief, and it doesn't have to be inclusive, idea of what, if you come and watch us, what are you going to learn about? Or maybe just a couple of highlights on some of your favorite episodes that we put in the can so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about some technical things. We're talking about products out in the market and kind of talking about the general ideas behind some of the things that are being sold on the marketplace in the OT security space, right? There's lots of different things that have kind of developed over the last, 10, 12 years of working in that world. We're also talking about if you're being faced with some challenges, maybe you're asked to be buy a product, maybe you're asked to be leading a team. Maybe you're asked to be working on a multi-stage or multi-site endeavor. How do you kind of organize yourself? How do you kind of work to make sure that things get done that maybe aren't always going to be under 100% your control? And how do you make that happen and happen quick and happen better, right? Again, things that we've seen, I think, throughout our careers in this space. Maybe some organizations have not done these things as well as they probably could have. We won't name names, nor will we ever hint at who they are. But I think we've seen things go well, and seen things go poorly, and I think we've got something to say on that side.
Yeah. I mean, we do. We talk about product, we talk about technology, but I guess to try to give you a little different perspective, you sort of said it. I'll say it, like, how do you get the most out of conferences? How do you buy stuff? And I think having done both those things a lot, maybe we bring a little perspective. And I'll give you the disclaimer right now. Look, I don't know that we're parting the clouds and sun is shining through and there's an epiphany, but I try to shoot for what I enjoy is, yeah, I kind of know about something, but as Eric and I talk about some of these things, hopefully you'll go, oh yeah, like I agree with that, or these guys are idiots. But either way, it's provoking, and you can, if you're in this situation, and we try to pick these kind of situations, is like, yeah, this is not your day to day. I'm not going to advise you on how to configure a firewall, but you don't buy a firewall real often. I sold firewalls forever. I can tell you some different perspectives on how to do that better. And so again, I'm not going to go on and on about that. But hopefully you get the idea, how to talk to management, how to, again, just career advice in many different forms and ways, almost regardless of the topic at hand.
That's right.
I don't know. That's probably good enough. You
Yeah,
think?
like so let's do a quick, I think every podcast, when you have a team of people that you talk, they all have their acts, right? They have their shtick.
Yeah.
Like who's
Yeah.
who's the smart one, who's the dumb one. We're pretty clear who's the dumb one. That's me. But Dwayne, other than you being the smart one on the podcast, what are we going to hear from you, and then I'll tell you a little bit of what you hear from me.
I'll step outside my usual persona and say, yeah, I don't think you're the dumb one. But I guess I'm the old historian, curmudgeon, the a-hole guy. But, I started my career, to give you the CV in the briefest manner possible that helps you get some light on this is, I've done, work in manufacturing. I've written software. I've written MES systems. That's a long time ago, but I worked for consulting companies that covered manufacturing. I built networks. I worked for a major networking manufacturer. So my perspective is going to be very network centric, very practitioner centric, a little hard edged. Sometimes that's a little bit of a show, and sometimes that's just me. But I think what you are going to hear from me is I try to be pragmatic. I try to share all the many and various mistakes I've made, particularly around social miscues, which I think is an engineered thing. And hopefully I've made the mistakes and can advise you on the ones not to make. And I don't know, you've known me for a few years now. What else do you think?
No, I think I think you've got the technical muscle to talk about some of these things in reality and how they go right and how they go wrong, which is a little different than me, who's dabbled in all the technical things and done a little bit, done enough to be dangerous, but never the expert, right? But as someone who's has looked at these things from maybe a broader view, right? I worked for an engineering company, and then worked for a couple engineering consulting companies, and then started in this kind of product space, seeing people implement ICS and ICS security related products. So I've kind of seen both the how do you design a program from the beginning to how do you get very tactical on implementation of things to how do you kind of tie all that stuff in a bow and send it on to management and higher level people like that in the echelons with people who can't even spell OT. So all that stuff I think gives me a little bit of different view on the world, whereas where you might be a little more technical, I might be a little more tactical, a little more philosophical, which kind of lets us kind of banter off of each other from a hard-nosed, hey, we got to get this thing done, to a softer, kinder version of, let's report this appropriately. Let's talk about this thing, and let's make sure that everyone's brought in and kumbaya-ing around a decision. So I think that should give you a good enough intro to kind of who we are. I also, by the way, I like to take a little bit higher level view. I like history, I like philosophy. I know you do too, Dwayne, and like to bring those things into some of these discussions as well, particularly on the career side.
I'll end my whatever verbiage I have to spew by saying this. I mean, the thing I'll say to everybody out there is one thing that Eric and I also share in common is just boundless curiosity, right? We both love to go on site. You know, we were talking earlier about one day we would be in a mine and the next day a electrical utility and the next day a manufacturing shop floor. And that what continues to keep me interested in this sort of weird world. And hopefully, and quite frankly, again, this is an outlet for that. I don't always pretend to even know the answer, but it's great to pick a topic and go do some research that's outside of my 9 to 5 job of schlepping software or whatever. So the curiosity, hopefully, I can bring that and share that with the audience.
Right, and help everybody else continue their roles and their jobs. And like we said, it's kind of, in my opinion, the best job in the world is working in ICS. I think it's super fun and only place where you can learn tons and tons of stuff without getting bored.
Yeah, absolutely. So strap in, and hopefully you'll enjoy the things we're talking about. I think releasing something new every other week.
We hope so.
Or like that. Maybe some topical things on the off weeks. But yeah, stay tuned.